China will soon impose an additional tariff of 15% on some U.S. goods after President Trump ordered an additional 10% tariff on all imports from the country.
Janice Mackey-Fryer explains how it's going to hurt Hoosier farmers and others all across this country.
China wasted no time in retaliating against the new U.S. tariffs, announcing their own tariffs on American food and effectively telling 15 companies they can no longer do business here without special permission. It's a big hit for American farmers, especially in the Midwest, who export a lot to China. It's the largest food importer in the world. Chicken, wheat, corn, cotton, all subject to a 15% tariff and 10% tariffs on sorghum, soybeans, pork, beef, fruit, vegetables, dairy, aquatic products. The levies take effect on March the 10th, which is a sign that Beijing is allowing some time and maybe room for negotiation, but there has been very little communication between the two sides since President Trump announced tariffs last month. Together, there's now 20% on nearly all Chinese goods.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another day of tariffs from the Donald the Wicked. As we saw in that clip, it seems to be a tit-for-tat game between Xi and Trump. China represents the single largest buyer for food products anywhere in the world. Why would we want to piss them off? Maybe that's a question Donald could answer, but I don't hear anything coming from. As of March 10th, 3 days ago now, going on maybe 4, China's population is 1.42 billion, with the United States at 145 billion. Yeah, we're growing food for ourselves and for China. How could we possibly eat all the food ourselves? Donald's statement that, our farmers becoming independent and we buy all the food ourselves would strengthen our country. We can't eat that much food, Donald. Donald says they're responsible for fentanyl and unfair trade deals. First of all, when you deal with a country that's literally, 4 times the size of yours, the trade is probably going to be 4 times difference. That's just the way it works. They're going to want to sell us more than what they buy because they want to produce their own, and that's why they have cities called super factories. We buy from them because they have those super factories. But I digress. Donald says that fentanyl is the problem. He blames that on everybody. And to me, it's a cry of the wild because I don't think Donald cares about anybody but himself to begin with. But I digress. If it's fentanyl, then, we have 2 problems with that. First, China has a police force that works with the United States ICE in regards to fentanyl imports. They actually outlawed fentanyl. Fentanyl wasn't illegal in their country until 1979. They outlawed it, and as most criminals do, they find a way around a law. And the way they found the way around that law with China was the fact that they went for the natural sources, the resources that were used in making fentanyl. And they started buying them. And they started wholesale shipping them in different quantities in different containers all around the world, and then they put them all back together when they get to their destination. But I do have a serious question here on that point. Why are we importing so much fentanyl? Why is it Donald wants it stopped? Because we have a drug problem here in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, if there wasn't a need for it, it wouldn't be coming here. If there wasn't a market, they couldn't sell it. Think about that. We have a drug problem. We want somebody else to fix it. Why don't we fix it ourselves? Besides, it leaves us in a strategically weak position. We'll get into that in a few more minutes.
These are all beef cows.
Tim Keegan calls himself a pretty basic Iowa farmer. His family's been working the land in Mount Vernon, a few hours east of Des Moines, for generations. Their livelihood comes from corn, soybeans, and a small herd of 150 cows.
How high are the stakes for you?
It's tough because within agriculture, we essentially get one chance a year to raise a crop and market that crop and sell that crop.
You don't have 5 different harvests.
No, it's not like we're a factory where we're constantly putting out widgets every day and we can make a change and the widget's going to come out cheaper or different the next day. So we're forced to be a lot more forward thinking, just the nature of our business.
China is the largest overseas market for many U.S. farm products. Last year, the U.S. exported nearly $13 billion worth of soybeans from farmers like Keegan to China alone. and another $1.5 billion in beef. Now, import tariffs up to 15% from China are hitting cash crops.
I think people within agriculture are hoping that some of this is, these tariffs and stuff will be short-term from a negotiation standpoint. And if they are long-term, they will have some pretty big impacts within the industry.
The U.S. government was the one that originally opened up global trade. The Midwest farmers didn't have the connections to do it, you know. The Rust Belt farmers didn't have the connections to do it. The Southwest and the Southeast farmers didn't have the connections. It was the U.S. government during the Cold War when we reached out to Russia and China and Korea and many other places that we wanted to try and have some sort of diplomatic relationship with, even though there was a tension of war going on. And we offered humanitarian aid for certain things to help them and to help induce a friendlier environment for negotiations in war. The Midwest farmers didn't go out and create this market. The U.S. government created the market, and now the U.S. government's trying to close it down. They're trying to blame it on fentanyl.
At a meeting this week of the National Milk Producers Federation, the board of directors said the president's immigration policies are the #1 challenge facing dairy farmers alongside tariffs. CBS News got a rare behind-the-scenes look at how these two forces interact. A new documentary from CBS News Race and Culture and CBS Reports reveals the connection between immigration and food prices by following the journey of the people, both legal and undocumented, bringing America's milk to market.
Is there any credence to the argument that people who are hiring undocumented immigrants are rewarding illegal behavior?
I think what people that are hiring undocumented people are doing is getting something done that Congress hasn't gotten done. Don't blame the rest of us out here in the country that need to get the work done and get the food on the table.
Can your farm survive, John, without immigrants?
No. It would be the end of dairy farming here. I would have to adjust my life somehow, and I'm not sure I could do it, but I'll have to.
CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez joins us now. So, Camilo, why are farmers like the one you spoke to hiring undocumented immigrants?
Well, look, it is an open secret in Wisconsin and other states that have large presences of dairy farms that most of the workers on those farms are here illegally. They either crossed the border illegally or they came here on a visa and overstayed that visa and now are in the country without legal status. And the reason for that, we understand, is because this is grueling work. The worker we spoke to from Mexico said that he works 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, starting at 3 a.m. The pay is low. Wow. And the farmer we spoke to said that he would not be able to hire American workers if he could, because he could not pay them the salary that they would demand.
The U.S. government has driven the Midwest, Southwest, Southeast farmers to the verge of bankruptcy. He offers no solution, but during his first administration, he did offer subsidies. So what did that do? That cost the taxpayers, that's you and me, we the people. It cost us money for him to be able to have his tit-for-tat war. Well, this time, I'm not hearing any subsidies. I'm not hearing about any help for the farmers. I'm not hearing any support for them. Then, on top of that, he goes and cancels U.S. aid. Wow. You know, that was giveaway food that we were, again, reaching out with a humanitarian purpose, and it's gone. So we imposed tariffs on China. China doesn't buy as much as they want from us because they're not going to be able to afford it. And then they reply with another tariff for anything coming back in that we need. And then we kick out one of the biggest projects to keep farmers going was the U.S. aid. I can remember a day when we shipped megatons, metric tons of wheat to our only serious adversary, Russia, in a humanitarian effort that kept Midwest farmers going for decades. You'll notice in some of these clips that I'm showing you throughout this podcast that these farmers are talking about their decades and generations of farming in there with their families and in their past. This has been going along fine. This has worked for generations until Donald come along. And in both administrations, Donald has tried to kick the legs out from underneath the American farmer. I don't know how much more they can take, you know, but Donald says the tariffs are going to strengthen our economy and our farmers. And I would like to ask any of you, if you could tell me how that's actually going to work, because I know I have a lot of the right-leaning people listening to my podcast. I get messages from you every day. Down below in the comment section, tell me how Donald's policy is strengthening the American economy and the American farmer when we can't eat all the food that they're producing and we have no source of sale on it anymore. So let's get back to one of the issues that I wanted to bring up. And I'm fortunate in the fact that this issue, one of the few in the world that hasn't touched my family or my friends, is fentanyl. Fentanyl's a drug that I have seen cripple people, not anybody I know, just news clips and newsreels. And a friend of mine that's in law enforcement tells me about the training they must go through for a couple of different things. One, their own personal exposure. Cops are dropping on the street because they catch a bad guy, they're frisking him, they open up his pockets, bang, or they touch a needle, bang, or worse yet, they touch something and it's absorbed through their skin. Fentanyl can be absorbed through the pores of your skin. These cops are just trying to do a job. And then there's the junkies. There's the people that have a problem. Yeah, there's a lot of bad junkies. There's a lot of people that fell through the cracks that just didn't try. I get it. I'm not blind to that whole thing. But there are a group of people out there that just have nothing else, so this is their mask. It's a psychological term that the psychologists use when someone has a problem and they take it out on a different manner. In other words, they drink or they have a drug problem or they're abusive to their spouse. That's a mask. Fentanyl's a mask for a lot of people in this country, and we must have a lot of them in here because fentanyl is coming into this country, according to the current administration, at a rate unseen before. Well, what does that tell you, folks? Just do the simple math. You know, when you were a kid, you learned 1 and 1 meant 2. If we have a drug problem and it's coming into our country, that means we have the problem. Why aren't we trying to fix it? Where's the program for the U.S. government, or for anybody else for that matter? I'm not relying on the U.S. government for everything. I try to barely rely on them at all. They're unreliable, you could say. But I digress. Where's the program? Where's the initiative? Where is any word that any of you have ever heard that the United States is trying to address a fentanyl problem, other than we want to blame Canada, China, Mexico, Korea, you know, just like Donald does for all his other problems. It's everybody else's fault except his. This is our problem. We need to fix it. Enough ranting and raving tonight. I want to thank everybody that's listening. If you've made it this far in the rant, I really do appreciate it. Do me a favor. Just give me a thumbs up. Like what we're doing here. Help me spread the word. And by all means, watch the 50-51 marches and protests and their projects. Support them in their effort. This is a peaceful, nonviolent way of protesting what our current government is doing. But ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'm going to say good night and wish you all a wonderful evening. Good night.